Hello everyone. A few months ago I made a thread on Twitter showcasing a few weird Malice Mizer bootleg albums I had found on the internet, and recently I thought, why not search for more Visual Kei bootlegs and collect them for a video, so that's what I did. And I think it ended up being more interesting than I expected. Yeah, just a short intro this time. Thank you to my patrons, Mumble Honey, Remilia, Big Body Igor, Canary K, CD Insomniac Slayer, Dali, Lemon Piglet, Hattie Soup, Damian Trevor Vincent, Evister and Mizi. And let's get into the video. First of all, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that word or are not sure of the exact definition, a bootleg is an unofficial audio or video recording of a musical artist's performance. It is distributed without the artist's or a record label's approval, either traded among fans for free or sold for profit. Although that word is typically used in the context of unique recordings of live performances or unreleased material, bootlegs can also be made out of normal studio recordings taken directly from officially released albums. Unless someone were to simply copy the whole tracklist of an album along with the artwork and everything, then that is not a bootleg but rather a pirated copy, I think. As one might expect, there are quite a lot of bootlegs and especially pirated copies of albums of Visual Kei bands, or Japanese bands in general. I assume that this is because official releases are difficult to obtain for people who don't live in Japan. And if you do find official releases, they might be very expensive. These mass-produced, locally distributed and probably very cheap bootlegs were an easier to obtain and better accessible alternative to official albums. Instead of paying $50 plus shipping for a single Dir En Grey album you want from Japan and waiting a month for it to arrive, one could go to their local shady bootlegged and pirated CDs place and find an entire Dir En Grey discography on a single CD for €5. This is just an example that I made up. Of course it wasn't that easy, but you get the picture. However, as of right now, from what I have seen, these cheap local bootlegs are listed for very expensive prices online. I think this is because of their uniqueness and rarity, and because most people lost interest in them now that it's easier to buy things from Japan or simply listen to music on the internet without buying it. I feel like bootlegs kinda became a collector's item. Of course, it goes without saying that bootlegging is rather harmful for the artists, as they get no revenue from the distribution of such releases. However, and I don't want to start an argument, but I feel like in some cases this ethical dilemma of bootlegging is more nuanced. Not only because it gave people access to music of bands that they would possibly not be able to listen to otherwise, and let's be honest, if someone becomes a fan thanks to a bootleg recording, then they probably will buy the band's official albums in the future if they get the chance to do so. But mostly because it helped to preserve so many things. Let's take Malice Mizer for example. If it wasn't for fans smuggling tape recorders or whatever into live venues, we probably wouldn't even know about the existence of many songs from the Tetsu era that came before Memoir and were never recorded in the studio. But anyway, we are not here today to talk about these serious, fully respectable bootlegs. We are here to talk about the weird ones, you know, the wacky ones, the goofy ones, the why does this even exist ones. You will know what I mean in a moment. Let's start with the band that ignited my interest in the topic of weird Visual Kei bootlegs, Malice Mizer. In the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a company in Taiwan named Hosan. It existed specifically to produce bootleg albums of popular Japanese artists. There were a lot of cases similar to this, as you will learn throughout this video. In 1999, they released Malice Mizer and Gecht complete singles. The album consisted of 12 Malice Mizer songs from the Gecht and Klaha era and 4 solo songs by Gecht. The booklet included in the jewel case has lyrics and artwork of the singles you can find on the album. A few years later, I assume in 2003, Mia Records, another Taiwanese bootleg Japanese albums producer, released Miserable, Gagged and Malice Mizer complete singles. Why I think it was in 2003 is because, according to Discogs, Mia Records was established in 2003 and this album's label code or whatever is 0002, so I think it was the second release by this label. Like the Hosan complete singles album, this one also has 12 songs by Malice Mizer and 4 by Gagged, but in reversed order, so now it is Gagged who starts the tracklist. And the artwork is pretty interesting. The front cover is simply a photo of Gagged with the text Gagged, Miserable. On the disc you have a text saying that all rights to the content go to the manufacturer, that being Mia Records, and distributing it by others is prohibited. On the back you have Gagged again with the title Gagged, Miserable and the track list. I find it really funny that this was produced as a Gagged album but is mostly Malice Mizer. It's also kinda funny that these two albums came out back when the fanbases of Malice Mizer and Gagged kinda didn't like each other. I mean, Taiwan was playing both sides in this argument. 2003 also saw the release of Memoir plus Voyage sans Retour by Mia Records and Ever Anime International Records. This one was a joint venture, I guess. As the name suggests, it's simply a compilation of the Tetsu album Memoir and the first Gagged album Voyage sans Retour. The front cover has a photo of Malice Mizer from Le Ciel, so from neither Memoir nor Voyage, but from Mervele. Poor Tetsu did not make it into the cover. When you open the jewel case up, you get a memoir artwork and something that looks like an obi strip with the original artwork for Voyage and Memoir. And fun fact, the real Voyage sans Retour album also included a similar obi strip advertising Memoir. And of course, all rights go to Mia Records. I mean, the audacity to put a disclaimer like this on a bootleg. We have left Taiwan and now we are in Russia. Malice Mizer 1, or rather Malice Mizer 1, Kolekcja albumów I koncertów, meaning collection of albums and concerts. I found no information about this album other than a single photo of it. In the bottom left corner, there is what I think is an age rating? Maybe? That's just my guess. Like, we have the PEGI system in Europe, which looks kinda similar, but here it just says 7. And in the background we have the worker and kolkhoz woman holding a hammer and a sickle sculpture for some reason. The USSR was no longer a thing, by the way. To the right we have J-Rock, 192 kilobytes per second, MP3, you know, information on the file format. And then we have a logo of darkside.ru, a prominent Russian database of rock and metal music. Darkside does have a page on Malice Mizer, but I don't think they released this album. From what I could find on the internet, Darkside did not have a record label producing bootlegs, so I do not know what the logo is doing there. I do have an idea of who the producer of this album might have been. Stay tuned for that, I will talk about it in a few minutes. Here is Taiwan again, this time with a DVD. Barani iradorareta akui to higeki no makuake dai ichi yo shakai no sogo dai niyo ishijima no sakuso. That's the full title of it. You have the Nippon Budokan Live with Klache in the front, the same thing is in the back, but you open it up and you get gagged. And then you look at the track list and you see that the album also includes the entire Sans Retour Voyage Dernier VHS. So yeah, the inclusion of Gagged does make sense. Another Taiwanese DVD, and this one presents itself as an MTV collection for some reason. You get a lot in this DVD. You get the Bara no Conrey film and making of it. You get the Beast of Blood music video, also with the making of. And you get the entirety of Mervele L'espace Live. Dir En Grey has a lot of pirated albums. Most of them are fairly authentic copies of originals, the main difference being the record label logos. But we are not interested in those. In 1999, Zusheng Cultural Business from Taiwan released Kaede, If Trance and Moso Tokakugeki. On the front you have a picture of the Dir En Grey guys. On the back you have artworks for Behind the Mask, Misa and Cage. The album includes an obi strip and a piece of paper with lyrics that also details Dir En Grey's discography and biography. In the year 2000, KEI Digital Media, yet again from Taiwan, released Dir En Grey complete singles. And the Dir En Grey logo they chose looks like Microsoft Word art, if you remember what that was. Ever Anime International Records released Macabre plus Gauss in 2001. As the name suggests, it's the two Dir En Grey albums. It has the Macabre album cover and inside are two discs, Macabre and Gauss. And it has an obi strip that I wish we had a better picture of because it looks pretty funny. It appears to be filled with some random logos and hype labels. And we are back in Russia again with Dir En Grey, Polnaya Antologia Tworczestwa, complete body of work anthology or something like that. It looks very similar to that Russian Malice Mizer CD, but it's also pretty different. We do not have a hammer and sickle age rating this time. I guess someone finally informed the producer that the USSR has fallen a decade ago. We have a music rarities label, a melodic rock label. Dir En Grey have been pretty experimental throughout their career, but I don't think I would call any of the releases melodic rock. Then we have information on the file format and a logo of the record label Domaszniaja Kolekcja, meaning home collection. The label's description on Discogs reads: Domaszniaja Kolekcja was a pirate MP3 CD-ROM label, gathering albums from people, encoding them and making MP3 compilations with similar inlay design. An artist photo, usually copied from the internet, artist name and series color stripes, depending on the type of music contained on the CD-ROM. There are 4 series, the Malice Mizer and the Dir En Grey were red, so the red series is for all kinds of rock and pop artists. Although the date on most releases ends on 2004, these CDs are still reprinted today, sometimes under different label names and with different artworks. So I guess because of the similar artwork, Domaszniaja Kolekcja was also responsible for the Russian Malice Mizer album, although its logo is not on it for some reason. Anyway, going back to the Dir En Grey one, the back of the album includes a Windows 98 and 2000 logo and Winamp for some reason, and also artworks of official Dir En Grey albums. There are 88 unofficial releases listed under X Japan on Discogs, and additional 67 releases as X. In total 155, which is quite a lot. That's around as much as some of the best known metal bands have. Obviously not as much as Black Sabbath and Metallica, but it's more than Quiet Riot and Bathory, for example. Although most of them are off-label releases distributed by X Japan themselves. And unfortunately all of the releases produced by bootleggers appear to be just pirated versions of actual albums, so not really that interesting. In 1996, Hosan from Taiwan again released a 5-disc bootleg box set of X Japan albums, and I admit it looks pretty cool. I found a blog post about it on dev/angel.blogspot.com, quote, "My introduction to X Japan was a cheap Taiwan release box set more than 10 years ago, and all the studio albums are in there. I first heard about X Japan a dozen years ago through some strong recommendations at some European discussion forums. A reader was asking everyone to give Silent Jealousy a listen. Those were the glorious days of Audio Galaxy and I was hooked. I start to listen more and it gets frustrating because you cannot find X Japan CDs easily. Then I went to Tower Records at Bukit Bintang, that's a district of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. and so this box set. Since I can't afford Japanese pressings, a cheap Taiwan press will do. The packaging with the lyrics booklets are good enough for me, so sometimes hunting out Taiwan or Korean pressings of Japanese rock bands that we like is good enough, especially if the Japanese pressings are so expensive. Lunacy have 2 Taiwanese complete singles albums. What's interesting about them is that they include singles from solo careers of Lunacy members. In this one, released by KEI Digital Media, only 10 tracks are Lunacy songs, and then you have 6 songs by Ryuichi Sugizo and Shinya. And I'm disappointed because it is not a real complete singles collection. It only includes singles released between 1993 and 1998, excluding I For You. I don't know when this album was released. Sure, if it was released in 1998, then of course it would not include later singles, but it is still missing I For You, which was released in 1998. And also, End of Sorrow is misspelled as End of Suror. Okay, by now you are definitely wondering why almost all of these bootlegs were made in Taiwan of all places. Since the 1960s, Taiwan was basically the world's capital of pirating albums. According to an article by Taipei Times, in 1965, more than 45 factories in Taiwan produced 350,000 pirated records a month. Many of these records were later exported all over Asia, even to North Korea apparently. Counterfeit vinyls of popular albums were especially popular among American soldiers stationed in Taiwan. Taiwanese companies printed cover artworks on paper instead of cardboard and sold thousands of them to American troops at discounted prices. According to a blog post by Atlas Records, quote, "These counterfeits were sold in record stores right alongside the authentic releases of records, but for a fifth or a quarter of the price." A Billboard article from 1970 said that a fake copy would cost 70 cents, whilst an authentic copy would set you back $3.50. Those may look like small numbers nowadays, but the difference is just huge. According to Akihabara renditions, the music piracy industry of Taiwan hit a small bump in the road in 1992, when Taiwan reformed its domestic copyright laws. But the production of pirated and bootlegged albums of artists from outside Taiwan was allowed to continue until January 1st, 2002, when Taiwan joined the World Trade Organization. From now on, Taiwan had to enforce the copyrights of all other countries that were members of the WTO. Taiwan cracked down on the companies that violated international copyright. Such companies either shut down completely, started producing legitimate CDs, or kept rebranding to evade liability. Some of them decided to relocate to People's Republic of China, which at one point actually outperformed Taiwan in the production of counterfeit albums. As of now, as far as I know, there is no mass-scale counterfeit album production going on in Taiwan. Now that we all have the historical background information needed, let's go back to Visual KEI. Other than the artists I already discussed, I was not able to find many Visual KEI artists that have any bootleg releases. Whenever one of them has any unofficial releases, they are usually just pirated albums which do not interest us for the purpose of this video. But I did find a few interesting bootlegs, so I'll now do a quick rant. Here is the Super Best album by KEI, released by Hosan in 1999. As the name suggests, it includes KEI's Super Best songs. And I admit, I don't know many KEI songs, but I look at the tracklist and I see Rain, Yuaku and Winter Again, and that's enough for me to agree that it is a Super Best collection. According to Discogs, the album came in a blue tinted jewel case with the artist name and title printed over it. Here we have a fun crossover, Młody Mła and Schwarzstein single collection. released by Mia Records from Taiwan, of course. It includes 6 songs by Mwadimwa and 4 songs by Schwarzstein. The artwork depicts the album covers for Dialogue Symphony, Shadow's Temple and Pageant by Mwadimwa, and Current by Schwarzstein. It does not include Schwarzstein's Perfect Garden, even though it has songs from that single on it. I guess Mia Records did not manage to fit it on the cover. Another fun crossover, Shazna and Ramur. This is another one of those so-called MTV DVD collections by Zushenk Culture. This one is from 2001. It has 18 songs by Shazna and only 5 songs by Ramuru. Kuroyume Goodbye Super Collection, released by Mingyue Records, Taiwan of course. I think this was supposed to be like a farewell release made when Kuroyume disbanded in 1999. It includes 35 songs and comes with a lyrics sheet. And that concludes my presentation of bootlegged Visual Kei albums. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you enjoyed my selection of things to talk about. Once again, thank you to my patrons: Mumble Honey, Remilia, Big Body Igor, Canary K, CD Insomniac Slayer, Dali, Lemon Piglet, Hattie Soup, Damian Trevor Vincent, Evister and Mizi. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.